Good morning, everyone. My name is Luiza. I want to thank you, the organization, for the opportunity. I'm going to present the work Impact of Transmission Line Model Aspect on TW-based fault allocation studies. The paper was performed by me, Gustavo Cunha, Maria Martins Brito, Eduardo Ribeiro, and Professor Felipe Lopes. TW-based functions have gained authority and consequently been applied in protection and fault allocation applications, and also on power system modeling strategies. In EMTP platform simulations, a common practice simplifies some line features in relation to the real-world scenario. Some works in the literature still use Franken's independent line models during TW's studies, disregarding the line parameters Franken's dependence. In addition, transposition schemes and soil heterogeneity along the line are also modeling characteristics that are often disregarded. Despite the literature offers a substantial amount of studies that evaluate TWFL solutions, consider different fault conditions and system models, the impact of combinations of different line EMTP modeling strategies are scarcely addressed. So aiming to fill these gaps, studies considering these modeling aspects are performed, investigated their respective impacts on TWFL solutions. Based on TW phenomenon, several traveling wave fault allocation algorithms have been developed, and some depend only on the first incident wave detection, while others depend on the proper identification of waves reflected from the fault point. And to better understand this principle, the below diagram is used and represents fault-induced TW's propagation on the given line. The monitor line connects the local bus to the remote. L is the line length, D is the fault distance from bus 1, and T11 and T21, for example, are the instant at the first incident TWs arrive at buses 1 and 2 respectively, and the waves can reflected or refracted, and the instance they reach each terminal is given in the diagram. And with this time instance, several TWFL algorithms can be developed, and in this paper, the evaluated techniques are formed. Classical two-terminal and one-terminal method proposed in this paper, and the classical two-terminal needs only the first incident travel waves at both line terminals and the propagation velocity, while classical one-terminal needs the first and their fault reflected TW at the monitor terminal. Settings free two-terminal asynchronous method proposed by Felipe Lopes, and also settings free two-terminal method proposed by Gilani. These other two methods require the first incident and fault reflected TWs to be detected, and to obtain the reflected TW from the fault point, the methodology reported in this paper from Cell is applied here. This is also the line used for the paper. The line length is equal to 235 and 27 kilometers. The adjacent line length is equal to 70 kilometers, and the system operated at 230 kilovolts and 60 hertz. So to obtain this instance, it's important to decouple the signal by means of model transformation in order to avoid the misinterpretation between aerial and ground modes. So the Clark's model transformation is used for this purpose. Decouple the signal into aerial mode TW1 and TW2, and ground mode or zero mode TW0. Being only the aerial mode used here, and the next step is to apply the differentiator smoother DS filter to the aerial mode used to the air mode signal to extract the TW amplitude and polarity information by converting fault-induced step-like changes into triangular-shaped outputs as depicted in the figure, and the DS filter has also unit gain. Tower configuration, conductor data, and soil resistible values are based on a real system located in northern Brazil. The tower configuration and conductor data is illustrated in this figure. 8 systems have been modeled and simulated in 18P, considering frequency dependence of line parameters, considering constant Bergeron and Frances-dependent J-Martin models, line models. Line is a model as ideally transposed, considering a mathematical process that maintains the mutual coupling between phases equal, and also is modeled with real transposition done using ATP transposition blocks to connect the untransposed sections with lengths equal to 160, 130, 130, and 160 of the total line length. In addition, the line is modeled with an equivalent soil resistivity, homogeneous soil, and also with a non-homogeneous soil, which the soil resistivity values varies longitudinally, resulting in 4 distinct resistivity values shown here in the figure, in the table. So the first table describes each evaluated power system scheme being the system 1, considered the most simplified model, whereas system H is taken as the most realistic one, and system 1 is used always as the reference for the comparison. For each system, the propagation speed was obtained by line energization simulated in ATP, considering this formula, in which tau is the estimated propagation time. Single phase A to ground AG and double phase BC faults are simulated. Consider the fault distance varying from 3 to up to 96% of line length, resulting in 32 fault distance. And as 8 systems were simulated here and 2 fault types were taken into account, a total of 512 simulations were carried out, and faults are assumed to be solid. Here, 3 studies are carried out based on the obtained scatter plots, analyzing each variable individually. So the scatter plots present a coincidence diagonal, which represents the region on which both evaluated systems present similar performance, and 2 areas above, the pink area, in which the modeling simplifications in system 1 increase the TFFL errors, and below the coincidence line, a yellow area represents scenarios in which the modeling simplifications in system 1 decrease the TFFL errors. So in this analysis, the AG faults are on the left and BC faults on the right, and analyze the transposition schemes. And it's noticed that errors increase when the real line transposition is modeled. When an ideally transposition line is considered, the propagation speed is always the same along the line, but in the transposed model, there are 4 untransposed sections throughout which different propagation speeds can be verified in each phase, resulting in uncertainties that can affect the TFFL performance. And this analysis showed that non-homogeneous models do not significantly affect the study TFFL methods, since most points are on the diagonal coincidence line, and all evaluated methods are based on area modes TWs, which are slightly affected by soil characteristics. Here, systems 1 and 5 are taken into account. So for a power system with constant parameters, errors are smaller than those observed for a system with frequency-dependent parameters. Besides, it can be verified that the methods proposed by Philip Lopes and Gilani present better performance than classical 2 and 1 terminal, since they do not require propagation speed settings. And another important find is that the TFFL errors are smaller for BC fault cases, since the ground mixing mode does not exist. And in this part, 2 different line modeling characteristics are combined, maintaining the remaining feature fixed, and then all the 3 evaluated modeling aspects are combined. These figures show the impacts of transposition schemes and soil heterogeneities simultaneously, comparing system 1 and 4. The performance shown in figures are very similar to the cases in which the real transposition is considered. This behavior is expected since the non-homogeneous soil has shown to be not critical to the evaluated TFFL methods, which in turn depend only on the analysis of aerial modes or traveling waves. Combine JMAT with real transposition, the error dispersion increases, accounting for line frequency-dependent parameters. In real transposition schemes, these characters correspond to the same scenario analyzed before, but separately, which the simplifications tend to decrease the errors. When JMRT and non-homogeneous soil are evaluated simultaneously, as shown here with systems 1 and 7, it is observed that higher dispersion takes place in the errors shown for AG fault than for BC fault. Due to the mixing mode, it is also observed that the obtained errors are more dispersed here than in the individual analysis for soil heterogeneities, demonstrate that the non-homogeneous soil model also raises errors when JMRT is taken into account, whereas for Bergeron line model, the soil structure does not present relevant impact. And the last analysis is performed by combining the three variables, contrasting system 1, consider the most simplified model, against system 8, consider the most realistic model. Most points take places in the yellow area, which is a behavior which attests that more complex line modeling indeed pose more difficulties in TWFL methods performance. Now, box plots obtained from the TWFL absolute errors are analyzed to evaluate the errors variability for each method. For an AG fault, it's observed that the area median is below 2 kilometers for all cases. Also, classical 1 terminal presents larger errors due to the challenging procedure of identifying the fault-reflected TW. It is also observed that the impact of frequency dependence on traveling wave fault location errors is more relevant in classical 2 and 1 terminal algorithms. Being also observed that the systems with even code numbers present large errors than those with odd code numbers, which proves the effects of transposition schemes. And for BC fault, the median error is below 1 kilometer for all scenarios. And also the third quartile in general is lower than for AG fault. Here the increase in errors due to transposition scheme is emphasized in all techniques. The even code numbers correspond to the transposition schemes. Average errors are presented for each system here and for each evaluated travel wave fault location algorithm. And in fact, observing both tables, double phase faults tend to present lower average errors than single phase to ground faults. It is also noticed that more complex system models tend to result in larger errors, but this is not a rule. In addition, second tables confirms that TW reflected detection is a source of errors, as well as algorithms that do not require line electrical parameters contribute to a more accurate fault location. As conclusions, the more simplified the line model is, the smaller the absolute errors are, except for the soil heterogeneity when using the Bergeron model, which consisted in the only case in which additional modeling complexity did not result in large TWFL errors. And TWFL methods can be affected by different line modeling strategies, pointing out that some features can favor or compromise the performance results, and how in real-world scenario it is expected that power systems will present characteristics close to those verified in the most complex system model. Considering this paper, the choice of a more simplified or realistic line model depends on the desired simulation accuracy. Also, due to the mixed mode, grounded faults are more critical for techniques that require fault-reflected TWs to be detected. And finally, methods which do not require the propagation speed parameters present lower errors in most cases. And thank you.